Chloe, for real? Are you still carrying around that relic from 2017? My brother Leo's laugh echoed as he dangled his shiny new smartphone in the air. We were all gathered by the Christmas tree in my parents' home in Denver, Colorado. Seriously, look at this thing. It's basically a historical artifact. My name is Chloe Bennett. I'm 29, and for as long as I can recall, I've been the designated black sheep of the family. While my siblings were busy racking up debt for designer labels, the latest tech gadgets, and five-star dinners, I was meticulously clipping coupons, hunting for gems in thrift stores, and living a quiet life in a small studio apartment on the far side of the city. What my family could never grasp was that every single penny I saved was being funneled into a project so far beyond their comprehension, it might as well have been on another planet. "It makes calls and sends messages," I responded, my voice even, as I slid my old phone back into my well-loved second-hand bag. That's all I need it to do. My sister, Sophia, performed a theatrical eye roll, her wrist flashing with a new designer watch. "Chloe, you're nearly 30 and you dress like you're raiding Grandma's attic. Don't you ever want anything nice?" The room's atmosphere shifted into that all-too-familiar air of condescending judgment I'd learned to breathe over the years. My mother, Eleanor, let out a deep, sorrowful sigh as she fussed with a ridiculously expensive glass ornament on the tree. "Honestly, Chloe, it's just mortifying sometimes. When people ask about my daughters, I tell them Sophia is a brand manager at a top marketing agency and drives a new Lexus. And then, there's you, with your odd jobs and your extreme couponing." My father, Richard, chimed in with a nod from his plush leather armchair. "We raised you to want more for yourself, sweetheart. There's a line between being frugal and whatever this is. You act like you're preparing for another Great Depression." Leo smirked, now swiping through a brand new tablet. "Hey, remember that time she brought her own herbal tea to my birthday dinner at that fancy steakhouse?" The waiter looked so confused. A wave of laughter rippled through the room, each chuckle feeling like a small, sharp sting against my skin. But I had built up an immunity to it. What they couldn't possibly see was the quiet determination behind every single sacrifice, every moment of ridicule I absorbed, while they lived paycheck to paycheck, their impressive salaries swallowed by their insatiable need to keep up appearances, while they were sinking deeper into debt to finance their lifestyle. I was in my little studio, building something monumental in the silence of the late-night hours after my part-time shifts. "I'm happy," I said softly, my eyes drifting to Leo's girlfriend, Mia, who was now showing off a pair of designer heels that cost more than my entire monthly food budget. They had no idea that in a matter of minutes, Leo would accidentally discover a piece of information that would shatter their reality. The phone they were all laughing at was about to expose a secret so profound it would turn their mockery into desperate pleas and their patronizing glares into stunned, gaping silence. The ridicule continued as we transitioned to the dining room for the holiday meal. Sophia made a whole production out of staging the perfect photo of her gourmet dinner for her social media followers, making a loud comment about how I'd brought my own filtered water instead of partaking in the expensive sparkling water my mother was serving. "Chloe has always been unique," Eleanor explained to Mia, as if I was a strange exhibit and not a person sitting right next to her. Even when she was a little girl, she would hoard her allowance money instead of buying candy and toys like the other kids. We always figured she'd grow out of it, but she didn't. I pushed food around my plate, my mind drifting to the thousands of hours I'd poured into my project instead of going out. While they were at pricey concerts or on lavish ski trips they couldn't really afford, I was surrounded by a fortress of books on software development, my laptop humming as I meticulously crafted what would become the most downloaded personal finance app of the last 10 years. The real kicker is that she has a degree in computer science, Richard added, slicing into his perfectly cooked prime rib. She could be earning a six-figure salary at any tech firm in the country, but she chooses to work part-time at a bookstore and do some freelance coding. It's such a waste of her potential. The secret, of course, was that my freelance coding was the ongoing development and management of SavvyCent, an application I had built from the ground up, now helping millions of users get control of their finances. The deep, cutting irony was not lost on me. My own family, a group of people in desperate need of sound financial advice, had absolutely no clue that their embarrassing daughter had created the very tool that could solve their problems. Leo pulled out his phone again, this time to show Mia a gallery of photos from his latest ski trip to Vail. This trip set me back 10 grand, but hey, you only live once, am I right? He shot a look of pity in my direction. Chloe probably thinks I'm insane for spending that kind of money on a vacation. I think people should spend their money on whatever brings them joy, I replied, and I meant it. What I left unsaid was that his entire $10,000 trip cost less than what my app generated in passive income for me every single day. Mia looked at me with a flicker of genuine curiosity. So, what kind of freelance work do you do, Chloe? App development, I said, keeping it simple, not wanting to open that door. The full truth was too staggering, too unbelievable for this audience. Oh, like you make little mobile games? Sophia asked, her tone dripping with dismissal. That's kind of cute. My mother just shook her head. We just keep hoping she'll meet a nice, successful man. Someone to show her what it's like to enjoy life a little. The conversation swirled on without me. They didn't know that I was already living my dream, a dream I had built in solitude, one line of code at a time. After dinner, we all went back to the living room for the gift exchange. I sat back and watched as my family unwrapped extravagant gifts they had all charged to credit cards that were still carrying balances from last Christmas. My presents to them, though carefully chosen, were humble in comparison. Homemade shortbread cookies in a decorative tin, a rare first edition book I'd found at an estate sale for my dad, and a scarf I had knitted myself for my mom. Hey, these cookies are actually incredible, Leo admitted, already on his third one. Did you make these in that tiny oven in your apartment? The very same. I nodded, a small smile playing on my lips. It amused me how he simply couldn't fathom that a person might choose a simple life, rather than be condemned to it by circumstance. As the night began to wind down, Leo got up to use the restroom. My phone, which I had plugged in to charge on a kitchen counter, began to buzz with a series of notifications. Without a second thought, Leo picked it up, probably just meaning to bring it to me. But the screen flared to life, still open to my mobile banking app from when I'd checked my accounts earlier that day. I saw it happen from the living room. I watched his face cycle through a series of emotions, first confusion, then wide-eyed disbelief, and finally, utter, profound shock. He just stood there, staring at the screen for what felt like an eternity, his jaw hanging slightly agape, before his eyes darted toward me in the living room. "Chloe," he called out, his voice sounding strangely thin and hollow. "Can you come here for a second?" The change in his tone was so abrupt that it silenced the room. Eleanor and Richard shot each other a look, likely assuming Leo was about to regale them with yet another story of my eccentric frugality. Sophia kept scrolling on her phone, but Mia looked up, her expression one of mild interest. I walked into the kitchen, a calm sense of inevitability settling over me. I knew precisely what he had seen. My banking app's main screen was displaying my primary checking account balance, $14,821,550.42. Below that, a list of recent transactions, daily revenue deposits from SavvyCent, updates on my investment portfolio's performance, and confirmations of large transfers from my business accounts. Is this real? Leo whispered, his hands trembling as he held my phone out to me. This can't be real. I gently took the phone from his grasp. What are you talking about, Leo? The money, Chloe. The money. There are over $14 million in your account. 14 million. His voice cracked on the last word. How is this even possible? The living room had gone dead silent. I could feel the collective weight of their attention shifting to the kitchen, a sense that something huge was happening, even if they didn't yet know what it was. Leo's face was ashen. All this time, we thought you were just getting by. We thought you were just too proud to ask for anything. We thought we needed to worry about you. But you're a millionaire. You're legitimately rich. The words hung in the kitchen air, fragile and explosive. I could hear my mother's sharp, sudden intake of breath from the living room doorway. I could feel the entire atmosphere of the house shift as Leo's words began to sink in. This was it. This was the moment it all changed. The moment my carefully guarded secret would detonate, obliterating their every assumption and revealing a truth they had never once bothered to look for. What did you just say? Eleanor's voice sliced through the silence as she rushed into the kitchen, Richard and Sophia right on her heels. The color had completely drained from her face as she looked from Leo's stunned expression to my calm one. Leo held up my phone again, his hand still shaking uncontrollably. Mom, Dad, you have to see this. Chloe has $14 million. $14 million. The kitchen instantly descended into chaos. Sophia shoved her way past our parents to snatch my phone, her eyes going wide as she saw the number on the screen. This has to be a prank. No way. Chloe, is this some kind of joke app? Give me that, Richard demanded, grabbing the phone from Sophia's hand. His reading glasses slid down his nose as he squinted at the screen. These numbers, the transfers, these can't be real. I stood quietly in the eye of the hurricane, watching as my family struggled to process information that so violently contradicted the narrative they had built for me. Eleanor leaned against the kitchen counter for support, her knuckles turning white. Chloe, you explain this. Right now. Where did you get this money? I developed an app, I said, my voice steady. It's done rather well. An app? Leo's voice went up an octave. What kind of app earns $14 million? A budgeting app. It's called SavvyCent. You might have seen it. The silence that fell over them was heavier than anything I had ever experienced. I watched as the gears turned in their heads, as the name clicked into place. SavvyCent wasn't just some cute little app. It was a phenomenon. It was the app that had been featured on every major news network, the one that had completely revolutionized the personal finance space, the one that celebrities and financial gurus were constantly recommending. Sophia's mouth dropped open. You're telling me you created SavvyCent? The app that was on the cover of Forbes? The one that every podcast is talking about? That's the one, I confirmed, taking my phone back from Richard's now limp hand. Eleanor staggered back a step, catching herself on the wall. But you live in that horrible little apartment. You wear clothes from thrift stores. You clip coupons like someone who actually understands the value of money. I finished for her. The entire purpose of the app is to teach people to live below their means, to save and to invest. I live by the principles I teach." Leo dragged his hands through his hair, pacing the small kitchen like a caged animal. "So all this time, while we were giving you advice on how to get your life on track, you were sitting on a fortune? While you were all laughing at my choices and calling me an embarrassment," I corrected him. Yes, Richard's composed businessman persona finally shattered. "Chloe, honey, if we had any idea, you would have treated me differently," I cut in. "And that is precisely why I never told you." Mia, who had been a silent observer through the whole explosion, finally found her voice. "So, when Leo spent $10,000 on that ski trip, you could have paid for the whole thing and not even felt it?" I just nodded. "I earn more than that in passive income from the app every single day." The room fell silent once more as the full weight of their actions over the years came crashing down on them. Every joke about my old phone, every snide remark about my second-hand clothes, every look of pity they'd ever given me for my struggles. All of it, every single bit, had been directed at a person who was more successful than all of them combined, based on nothing but their own arrogant ignorance. Sophia's expression morphed from shock to something shrewd and calculating. "Chloe, this changes everything. We're your family. We need to support each other." I just raised an eyebrow. "Support each other? You mean like how you supported me by calling my life choices mortifying at every single family gathering? That was different," Eleanor said, her voice suddenly turning sweet and wheedling. "We were just worried, honey. We thought you were struggling, and we wanted the best for you." "What you thought was best for me wasn't good enough," I replied. "Not until you found out it came with a 9-figure bank account you could approve of." The shift in my family's demeanor was as instantaneous as it was nauseating. Within minutes of learning about my wealth, the very people who had spent years ridiculing my choices were suddenly showering me with praise and manufactured concern. "You know, Chloe, I always admired your self-discipline," Richard said, adopting a warm, paternal tone I had never heard him use with me before. "Your mother and I were just saying the other day how brilliant you were to live so modestly." The blatant dishonesty of it made me want to laugh. "Really? Because not an hour ago, you said my lifestyle was something you were ashamed of." Eleanor quickly jumped in to smooth it over. "We were just concerned, sweetheart. We saw you struggling and we didn't want to hurt your pride by offering a handout." "My pride?" I repeated, my voice laced with disbelief. "You thought calling me a family embarrassment in front of your friends was your way of protecting my pride?" Leo, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly lit up. "Chloe. Hey, Chloe. I've been developing this incredible business concept. It's a social media platform for adventure sports enthusiasts. All I need is a little seed money to get it started. Maybe 2 or 3 million? That should be enough to get it launched." And there it was. Not even 10 minutes had passed since they found out, and the requests were already rolling in. Sophia chimed in immediately, her eyes gleaming, and I saw the most perfect condo downtown. It's a corner unit with a view. It's only $1.5 million, which is basically pocket change for you now. I could pay you back, of course, over time. "Pay me back with what?" I asked flatly. "The last I heard, you were complaining about being maxed out on all 3 of your credit cards." Her face flushed a deep red. "Well, that's why I need this fresh start. The condo would be a smart investment. Property values in that area are skyrocketing." Mia, emboldened by the turn in conversation, stepped closer. "Chloe, I'm not sure if Leo told you, but we've started talking about getting married. We don't want anything too crazy, just a small, intimate wedding. Maybe in Tuscany. I saw some beautiful venues there for around 300,000. You want me to fund your wedding? I asked, turning my gaze to my brother. The same brother who, not half an hour ago, was leading the charge in making fun of my phone? To his credit, Leo had the decency to look momentarily ashamed. Look, Chloe, I'm sorry about all that. I didn't get it. But I get it now. And families are supposed to help each other achieve their dreams, right? Eleanor nodded vigorously. That's right. Family money is for the family. That's just how it works. You can't be selfish and keep it all for yourself. The sheer audacity of it was staggering. I looked from one face to the next, at these people who had spent my entire adult life making me feel small, inadequate, and less than. They had pitied me, patronized me, and were now standing in my parents' kitchen with their hands out, acting as if I owed them a piece of the success they had openly scorned. Let me make sure I understand this, I said, speaking slowly and deliberately. Yesterday I was a walking, talking embarrassment whose lifestyle choices you apologized for. Today, you want me to use the profits from that same embarrassing lifestyle to bankroll your dreams. Richard stepped forward, putting on his most earnest fatherly expression. Chloe, we are your family. We share everything. That's what being a family is all about. You share everything? I let out a short, sharp laugh. What exactly do you have to share with me, Dad? Your mountain of debt? Your constant financial anxiety? Your complete inability to live within your means? That's not fair, Sophia protested. We work hard for what we have. And you think I didn't? I countered. Do you think $14 million magically appeared in my bank account? Do you think I built one of the most successful tech startups in recent years by accident, all while you were assuming I was a complete failure? The kitchen had become a pressure cooker, a battlefield with my family on one side, clamoring for access to a fortune they had just discovered, and me on the other, finally seeing them with perfect, painful clarity for the very first time. The confrontation reached a fever pitch just as my extended family started to arrive. News, it seemed, had traveled at the speed of light through our family's gossip network. Within an hour, my parents' house was packed with aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't heard from in months, all of them suddenly deeply invested in my life. My Uncle Frank, who had always looked at me with a mixture of pity and contempt, was now clapping me on the shoulder and calling me kiddo, as if we were the best of friends. Chloe, I've got this can't-miss investment opportunity in green tech. It's a sure thing, and I knew you'd want to get in on the ground floor. My cousin Isabella, who had made a series of catty remarks about my thrift store wardrobe at the last family reunion, was now gushing about how refreshingly authentic I was. I always told everyone you were the smartest one in this family. I have this little online boutique, and it just needs a small capital infusion to really scale up. My grandmother, who must have broken several traffic laws to get there so quickly, sat me down on the couch and clutched my hands in hers. Chloe, my dear, I am so incredibly proud of you. I always knew you had it in you. Now, your grandfather and I have been having a tough time with some medical bills, and I was just wondering if... I stood up so fast, the couch cushion flew back. I couldn't bear to hear another word. The living room was a sea of relatives, each with their own sob story, their own half-baked business plan, all of them suddenly treating me like a returning hero when for years they'd treated me like a pariah. Enough, I said, my voice ringing out, cutting through the cacophony of feigned affection. All of you, just stop talking. The room fell instantly silent, every eye locked on me. 6 months ago, at Sophia's birthday party, half of you in this room were making jokes about my poverty complex. Uncle Frank, You told people I was throwing my computer science degree in the garbage. Isabella, you asked my mother if I needed a loan to buy some real clothes. Grandma, you told me I was too stubborn to let the family help me. I scanned the room, watching their faces morph from greedy anticipation to sudden discomfort. Not a single one of you ever bothered to ask what I was actually building. Not one of you ever stopped to consider that maybe, just maybe, I had a plan. You all just assumed that, because my life didn't look the way you thought it should, that I was failing. Eleanor tried to cut in. Chloe, darling, I'm not done, I said, my tone as hard as steel. In the last 2 hours, you have collectively asked me for what amounts to almost $17 million. Leo wants millions for a business he hasn't even written a plan for. Sophia wants a condo she can't afford. Mia wants a wedding in Italy for a 6-month-old relationship. Uncle Frank wants me to gamble on a sure thing in an industry he knows nothing about. Isabella wants me to bail out her failing boutique. The silence was now thick with shame. And here's the most interesting part, I continued. Not one of you has offered an apology for the years you spent treating me like I was a stain on the family name. Not one of you has admitted that your judgment was completely and utterly wrong. Instead, you just jumped straight to the conclusion that now that I have money, I owe you. Richard stood up, his face flushing with anger. Chloe, that's enough. We're your family. We love you. We have always loved you. I started laughing then. I couldn't stop myself. The sheer, unadulterated absurdity of it all, the breathtaking lack of self-awareness, the shameless, naked entitlement. It was so ridiculous that laughter felt like the only sane response. You love my money, I said, gasping between laughs. Yesterday, you were ashamed of me. Today, you love me. The only thing that changed was a number in my bank account. Leo stepped forward, a note of desperation in his voice. Chloe, come on. We're sorry, okay? We're sorry if we hurt your feelings, but we're family. This is what families are supposed to do for each other. My laughter died in my throat. No, Leo, this is what you want families to do for you. I looked around the crowded living room, at the faces that had transformed from derision to avarice in the blink of an eye. The same people who had dedicated years to making me feel worthless were now staring at me with a raw, primal need, their hands metaphorically outstretched, waiting for me to fix the problems they had created for themselves. You know what the truly hilarious part is? I asked, my voice cutting through the tension. Every single one of you needs my help because you have all made catastrophic financial choices. Leo, you've churned through 3 jobs in 2 years because you prioritize expensive trips over building a career. Sophia, you are drowning in debt to impress people on Instagram who don't even know you. Mom and Dad, you're staring down the barrel of retirement with virtually no savings because you've spent your lives trying to impress your neighbors. I watched their faces fall as the unvarnished truth landed. I created an app that teaches people how to avoid the exact pitfalls you've all fallen into. And instead of trying to learn from it, instead of asking for a single piece of advice, you mocked me for living the very lifestyle that made my success possible. Eleanor's voice was a desperate plea now. Chloe, we made mistakes. We see that now. But family forgives. Family helps. Family respects each other, I shot back. Family doesn't spend years tearing one person down only to demand a handout the second it's convenient. I walked to the front door and pulled it open. The cold December air flooded in, smelling of pine and the clean promise of a new beginning. Here is my final official answer to every single one of your requests, I announced, turning back to the room of stunned relatives. Number. No to the startup capital, no to the condo, no to the destination wedding, no to the medical bills. and no to every other handout you were planning to ask for. You can't be serious, Leo said, his voice cracking. Dead serious. The same focus and determination you all made fun of is the same focus and determination that is going to keep my money exactly where it belongs, with the person who earned it. The room erupted in predictable outrage. "This is outrageous," Uncle Frank bellowed, his face turning a blotchy purple. "You can't just hoard all that wealth while your family is struggling." "Watch me," I replied coolly. Sophia burst into tears, which I suspected were about 99% manipulative. "Chloe, I'm your sister. How can you just turn your back on me like this?" "The same way you turned your back on me every time someone asked about your embarrassing little sister," I answered. Leo made one last desperate lunge. "Chloe, if you do this, you'll be all alone. You'll regret it. Money can't buy happiness. Family is all we have." I actually smiled at him, my own brother, who had kicked off this entire evening by mocking my phone. "You're right, Leo. Family is all we have, which is why it's so important to choose it wisely." The full weight of my words settled over them. I wasn't just saying no, I was cutting the cord. "You're making a monumental mistake," Richard said, his voice now cold and hard with rage. "We won't forget this." "Good," I replied. "I hope you remember it every single time you feel the urge to judge another person based on what they wear or how they live." Isabella tried one last time, a different tactic. "Chloe, think of all the good your success could do for this entire family. We could all be so much better together." "We could have been better all along," I said quietly, "but you chose mockery over support. You chose judgment over curiosity. You chose assumptions over a single, honest conversation. That was your choice. This is mine." I gestured toward the open doorway. "I have to get back to work. My company won't run itself, and unlike some people, I believe in being responsible for what I've built." One by one, they began to file out of the house, their faces a gallery of shock, fury, and disbelief. Leo was the last to leave, pausing on the doorstep to look back at me. "This isn't over, Chloe." "Yes," I said, as I gently closed the door in his face. "It is." In the months that followed, my family was forced to confront the consequences of their own actions. Leo's can't-miss business idea went nowhere. He couldn't secure a single dollar of funding and eventually had to swallow his pride and move back into my parents' basement. Sophia's financial house of cards collapsed, forcing her into bankruptcy. She sold her Lexus, moved into a tiny apartment, and had to take a second job waiting tables to even begin to address her mountain of debt. Eleanor and Richard had to face the grim reality that their retirement was a fantasy. They sold their big house in Denver and postponed their plans indefinitely. As for me, I sat in my home office in the same cozy studio apartment, surrounded by the same simple things that had once been the source of so much ridicule. And I realized the ultimate revenge wasn't in denying them my money. It was in the quiet, unassailable truth that the very life they had mocked was the foundation of my own genuine, hard-earned happiness.